Okay, so I just wanted to announce some of our groups and courses. Some of you might already be a part of them, and that's why you're here with us. But for those who aren't aware, or maybe you're watching this later, we do have our ongoing groups with Choose Recovery. Our main groups, we have our Choose 90 and Choose 180 groups, and those are run by Luke, as well as other coaches that he has trained and hand selected to run those groups. And those are for men who are wanting help with sexual compulsive behavior, or perhaps just some sort of infidelity or betrayal that they themselves have committed in their relationship. So those are great groups and great starting points if you're trying to figure out where to start in your recovery process. We also have our betrayal trauma support groups. We have a group for women, and we also have a group for men who've been betrayed. Those are Choose Healing for women, and we also have Empowered After Betrayal for men. I'll put all of this in the chat as well, so I know it's a lot of information with some links as well.
Hey, Vanessa, would
Yeah,
you,
please.
sorry to interrupt you. Would you mind having promoting Alana in? She's ready.
Yeah, thanks for letting me know. All right, let's let her in. Okay, while she's coming in, we also have a group. Maybe some of you might not be aware, for those who are in our Choose Healing group and maybe wondering what the next step is. So we have a group called Leaning In, and this group is for women who um, have been at least 6 months in after the initial shock of betrayal. And they've done some initial recovery work, and now they're wondering, okay, what's the next step? They're wanting to lean into the relationship, hence the name. And so that's a great group to join when you're at that point. Amy Woolsey also has a group she runs with us called Believing in You. And that is a great group for women who, and you can be at any stage in your relationship of just maybe not sure where things are going to, how they're going to work out. And the group is how to get unstuck in your own thoughts and behaviors. And that's a great group. And she has a new format that's going to start February 28th. So now is a great time to jump on that if you are interested in that group. Okay, two more, and then I'll turn the time over to Luke and Alana. We have a great course called Help Her Heal that is created by Carol Jurgensen Sheets. And we have two of our coaches who are trained in that model. Alana's actually able to do that as well. The ones who are doing that course right now are Hallie Roderick and Anthony Walker. And that's a great group for men who are wanting to understand the effects of betrayal has on their spouses and how to help them heal. So those spots are limited. So that's always a good one to go check out too if you are a man wanting to know how to help your wife through this. Hallie and her daughter, who's just recently joined us, Morgan Ellsworth, also have a group. And I've done a lot of talking. So Alana, do you actually want to talk a little bit about this group, the Resilient Teen, that Hallie and Morgan are doing?
Yeah, I'm actually really, really excited about this. So Morgan's specialty is really working with adult children of addicts or people who have betrayed and teenagers who live in that environment or have grown up in that. And this is such an underserved population. There is unfortunately a lot of impact that happens to children, and we carry that into adulthood and into adult relationships. And so it's a place for whether they're teens or they're an adult who has had this type of impact, a place to process and to be able to move through it. And so having teenagers myself, this is something that I definitely would want my kids to have had the opportunity to have a place, because it's not like they can go to school and say, yeah, my mom did this or my dad did this and talk about it freely. I say the same thing with my teenagers as I do with my betrayed partners of, I don't want to make them look bad. I don't want people to know what's going on in my house or at my home, or I don't know who I can trust. And so having a safe place to be able to process that and to get tools on how to move forward, I think it is such a good resource to have. So if you have kids, teenagers who are going through this, or adult children who are having some of these attachment injuries themselves, this could be really beneficial.
Yeah, thank you, Alana. All right, any other points of conversation you guys want to have around any of those groups or courses that we mentioned? Anything you want to highlight?
I don't think so. There was Vanessa, thank you. I wanted to count how many times you said group, and I think there was more than 10. That was awesome. And
There
I
are
feel
some.
I feel for you because your voice hurts, right?
I apologize. I have a raspy voice, but thankfully it'll be mostly you guys talking. I will throw the information, just the links, so you guys can go to the landing pages for those courses and groups. And so you can learn more about them. You can always email me too if you have any questions. My email is info@chooserecoveryservices.com. So I'll put the information in the chat for you guys as we get started. Also, as we do this, if you guys have any questions, please use the Q&A that you'll see at the bottom of your screen versus the chat. That way I can keep all of those questions organized. I might be compiling some of them if they're similar. And the chat is really good if you want to validate a point somebody said, and the chat will be something everyone sees. So please use the Q&A if you have something that you'd like Luke and Alana to answer to me.
Awesome. Thank you, Vanessa. Thanks for taking good care of us. That Q&A function is just wonderful. So thank you for using that, everybody. All right, well, let's jump into this. So we are going to, I wanted to share something that happened. Oh, before I do, a lot of you are really, really kind and nice, and you wait for other people to go first when it comes to questions. So there's two kind of questions that come up here. There's the questions that are like, I came tonight with a question, like, I'm experiencing this in my relationship or in our relationship. Can we talk about this? And you guys bring I shouldn't say you guys, you will bring something that you want us to tackle. But there will also be stuff that will come up during the conversation today. So please don't wait to get that stuff in. Sometimes it will get an onslaught of stuff right at the very end. So the sooner the better. That'd be great. And no questions are off limits. We kind of like the hard ones. All right. So we are going to go through and talk. I want to share an experience that we had with a client. I'll make sure that, that we may keep the confidentiality piece here. Alana and I have the chance to do full disclosures with couples. And in this full disclosure, and for those of you who don't know, full disclosures are taking a history of acting out behavior, really sexual behavior, and disclosing it to the partner in a therapeutic environment. And there is an opportunity for the betrayed person to ask all the questions. The betrayed partner at the end of the day gets the truth verified with a polygraph exam typically. And also the partner, what they get at the end of this is a safety plan that is for the person that acted out, for the betrayer, from the betrayer, and they get to understand, just have a foundation for truth and for the healing to start in a different type of way. So I wanted to share with you at the end, and the people that go through this, I don't know, heroes, I don't know what my word is, but so much respect and admiration for people that will actually go through this, and both the betrayed and the betrayer. The betrayed because they just do nothing but continue to fight for their own healing and the relationship. Also the betrayer, because what they really do is they put themselves on the altar and say, hey, I'm going to let go of the outcome. Here's my truth. And we'll see what happens. And the amount of courage that takes is intense. And not all people that ask for that get that. So, okay, I'm done talking about full disclosures. But at the end of this full disclosure, the safety plan is presented. And when this safety plan was presented, and it's very detailed, like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is my plan. This is what I've noticed. This is what you can expect from me. And this is what I expect for myself. The partner said, okay, what happens if you slip? What happens if you fall? And you could tell, and it was the end. This took a lot of time, and both people were very tired. So he had ran probably out of gas and energy by the end of this experience because it was long. And you could see just like the fact of like, oh, if I slip, like I can't do that. I can't fall down. Like, and all this is just really purposeless if I fall down again. And, you know, and again, he was tired and exhausted from the end of the day and didn't have much capacity left. And I've been thinking about this so much from I think about with my journey and other men that I've watched of even when I get truth out, I go back to a place of I've got to be perfect. So Alana, obviously I'm running tonight, but I'm going to lean on you a little bit because I want to be partner sensitive. So if you could help me out there if I miss something, I would much appreciate it. But with this part of the journey, with this like I've got to be perfect for the rest of forever, we want to talk about that today. Okay. So this journey is not about the perfection. Okay. So we're going to talk about this journey and the fact of what it looks like. It's about the transparency, it's about the authenticity, and it's about the integrity. Patrick Carnes has a book and it has 4 faulty core beliefs. And these belief systems basically hold the addict hostage, like in prison in the behavior. And they have to believe these 4 things. And I just want to highlight one of them is if people truly knew me, they wouldn't love me or accept me. If my wife knew what I was doing, my partner knew what I was doing, they wouldn't want me to be around anymore. So I've got to protect that part of me. So I'm only going to show you parts and pieces of me. So even at the end of a disclosure, when all truth is out there, the same mindset still sticks. Still the addict's belief system is still in play, even after everything comes out. So what we want to do is set the stage for this perfection piece. Not the stage, set the stage for it, but just bring something into this place. I listened to this, Alana sent me a video of this man and he was talking about a part of the brain. I'm gonna sound like I'm super smart here by giving this Alana, I love how you're smiling. It makes it sound like I'm super smart. Okay, there's this part of the brain called and it's in the frontal lobe, it's called the anterior cingulate cortex. Yeah, good luck with that one. Anterior cingulate cortex. And this part of the brain is just really a muscle, and it's either really big or it's really small. Think about a muscle that's never ever used. It's like shriveled, dried up because it's never used, or you have one that's used all the time and it's big. And this this part of our brain, the way it grows bigger is that it only gets bigger based upon part of our brain with this. It only gets bigger if we do the things that we don't want to do, right? So if we want to do it, even if it's hard, even if it's difficult, it doesn't get bigger. But if we don't want to do it and we exercise that muscle, it grows. So this journey of it's not about perfection, but it's about transparency and authenticity and integrity is growing that part of our brain. By the way, you live longer if that part of your brain's bigger. So if you like that idea. So let's talk a little bit about what needs to happen along the way for the betrayer to come to grips with when it comes to not being perfect, but being open and vulnerable. So I've been spending a decent amount of time, Alana and I have been spending a decent amount of time with this woman. She's a professional in this field. Her name's Hope Ray, like Hope, Hope, and then Ray, Ray. And she has something where she talks about, bear with me, this is distracting. She has a term and it's called the floating saint. Okay. You're like, what the heck is the floating saint? Okay. So here's this concept and this term. I'm just going to read here for a second. So when a man becomes in tune with the pain that he's caused for his partner, he can feel quite ashamed and guilty. He knows how tenuous their conversations can be and how easily activated she can get by things that feel triggering. So he's hypersensitive and hyper aware to how she's going to, what her feelings are, even though he might not come across that way. He doesn't want to cause her more pain, and he doesn't want everything to result in an argument either. So avoidance of conflict, don't want that. Don't want to be present for her pain. This is where the man needs to watch out for his liability to become a floating saint. Okay, so it's a liability to become a floating saint. Now let me explain what a floating saint is. A floating saint is a man acts as a floating saint when he detaches from his own needs, feelings, and thoughts and desires in order to acquiesce to his partner's framework. So it's a method of keeping the peace in which he forfeits his authenticity so he can perform the way he thinks his partner wants. So by abandoning his own footing on solid ground, he floats away from his truth, needless, wantless, and relatively emasculated in order to not cause a stir. Okay, let me finish this next part. I'm going to come back to the not causing a stir. But the problem is that his old behavior of duplicity is reactivated, just in a different form. He can't give her the transparent window into his soul she is desperate for if he is not fully embodied and acting out authenticity and acting in on authenticity. So men have trouble with identifying what they feel or need in the midst of representing themselves and being themselves. Alana, do you want to make any comments on this before I keep going on? Because I've been talking for a minute here.
Yeah. This idea of a floating saint, I just want to say, I'm going to reread what you just said, but the problem is his old behavior of duplicity is reactivated just in a different form. He can't give her the transparent window into his soul she's desperate for, in essence, because he's just showing up in the way she wants him to be. So this really takes me back to early in our journey, a lot of our journey for a lot of years, that I so bad wanted Luke to show up in this certain way. Like I created all of my boundaries for me, but in so many of my boundaries, it was like, I need you to do this and do this and do this and do this and do this. And as much as I was trying to not mandate his recovery, I had so many ideas of how he was supposed to show up. And in his attempts to want to be everything I wanted him to be, we really got pulled into this idea of this floating saint of, okay, well, I just got to do everything that she wants me to be. But if it's putting aside how we think, how we feel, our own values, if we set all of this aside, or even just don't even think about it, just strictly so I can be whatever she wants me to be, then that is still a form of duplicity. And that I didn't realize. And so, and I see this over and over with individuals I work with. And it's usually the ones who really want to do it well. They so bad want to help their partner not be in pain. And where we will say to people, like, hold their pain, hold their pain. But it's almost like they set themselves completely aside and who they are and what they think and what they feel and what they want to just be what their partner wants them to be. But then we can never have this full authenticity of self if we're doing that. So I don't know about you, but the way that Hope described this for me was like this, like my mind was blown of what a beautiful way to put this concept into words, because Luke and I can never fully connect and heal unless he's showing up authentic and I'm showing up as authentic.
Yeah. So I want to thank you so much for saying that, Alana. So I want to talk about this part of the journey and give you an example of what it is seen over and over again. Okay, so this part of your brain that grows and shrinks with things that you don't want to do, and often the men go, well, I want to be authentic. I want to tell her that but I want to tell her that I resent her, or I'm having a hard time with what she's doing or what she's saying to me. I'm like, well, hold on. That's not what we're talking about when we say authenticity. When we talk about finding your own self, it's not about being able to tell things to your partner that are going to make you feel better. It's about telling things to your partner that you technically feel like is going to kill you, or kill your relationship.
Yeah, like
That's
parts of yourself that you hide because of fear of being seen or fear of rejection.
Yeah, because a lot of men hear that. I want to pull it back up here just to highlight it because I don't get stuck on this. So, a man, let's see, feelings of, bear with me here 1 second. By abandoning his own footing, no, that's not it. Again, bear with me. I really want to grab this part. He floats away from his truth, needless, wantless, and relatively emasculated. So he doesn't really find himself, and often he thinks finding himself is pushing back on his spouse of what she thinks he should be doing. And what we're talking about is the hiding part. We're talking about the showing those things. Okay, so that exists with the close calls. That exists with the sharing the sexual response that is experienced on a daily basis. It's with the slips. It's with the parts that are in hiding from the past, the parts that I'm hanging on to. It's showing up with those that it creates the opportunity. So here's what it looks like. So something happens. I'll just think of a man that I'm around lately that's the first one that comes to mind. He goes, I slipped. For the first time ever, I'm going to, and I've been hiding it for a couple weeks. I'm going to come back into the light. I'm going to come back in the light. I'm going to do something I've never done with my partner. I'm going to share. I'm going to share. So he shares and he's scared. And by the way, sorry if this is triggering for the partner. And he's scared to share because he doesn't know what's going to happen. And what does she do? That's scary. Like, what the heck? You've been hiding this? Like, where are we at? Where are you at? Where all this stuff, all these feelings. Alana, you'd explain it so much better than I would. And there's this intense emotion. He sees that and he reads that. And that's his brain's job, is to find danger. And now he sees his spouse as dangerous. So what he does automatically is he goes, in his brain, he goes, see, that's why I don't share. That's why I don't do it. But he doesn't verbalize that. All he does is he goes, every time she has a strong emotion with him being open, and what's scary is he goes, she can't take it. See, I can't share that. I need to go back into hiding. But this is typically what I've seen the partner do that is so amazing, is they go and they hear what their spouse has to say or their partner has to say. And she goes back to her groups, she goes to her therapist, she goes to her coach, and she processes around the situation. And she goes, what just happened? And they point out things and they say things, and she's coming into a light because she's finally got a partner that's being open and transparent. She's not happy. She's not like excited about that, but it's different. And she goes back to reconnect with him, okay? But guess what? He's gone back into hiding. He's gone back into shame. He's gone back into secrecy. So she thinks she's going back to a man that's still in this place of transparency, but he's not anymore because he's been so whatever it is by her that he's not even there to connect with anymore. So he's gone down. She's coming back to connect, and she might even think she actually is, but he's back in hiding. So the part that exists here, if we talk about the authenticity, is I am on this journey to take something that I never had, which is an understanding and a value of myself. And I'm learning this, and I'm learning about me, and then I'm giving my partner an opportunity to receive it, to see it and receive it. And it's the most beautiful thing that happens. Like, we talk about the journey, actually the healing being in you have the rupture and you have the repair. The beauty is in the repair, and the repair can't exist without the rupture. The rupture doesn't, and when I say that, I feel like I'm going to scare the partner. by saying, hey, it's okay to have ruptures. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying how we change the patterns in showing up for the ruptures and repairs and being authentic and being seen is the healing journey. Alana, any thoughts here?
It, the reality is, it is okay to have ruptures. We don't want ruptures, and ruptures feel really scary. But the reality is that is part of our human experience, is having ruptures and repairs. And I am way more concerned about couples who think they don't have ruptures than those who go, yeah, we have ruptures, and here's what we do to repair, because couples can't be close and connected without actually having the hard, because it's through the hard that actually creates that binding Velcro experience that we can hook together. It's through the hard that we actually come closer together. So when we have those ruptures, we have that hard, and then we learn how to work through them together and we repair. That's where we get stronger. And so it's the whole idea of us having ruptures, the fear of waiting for that other shoe to drop, I know sometimes can be even debilitating. But when we get to this place of understanding that there will be these ups and downs in the journey, and there will be ruptures and repairs till the day we die. Like, even when we work through this period of crisis, we will still have rupture and repair till the day we die, because we are humans having human experiences. And so that is part of it. And when we can come to that place of understanding and acceptance, then when ruptures do happen, we don't have to let it rock our world as much. We can go, okay, here's a rupture. Now what? How do we want to tackle this? And it puts us more in a place of empowerment.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that. What I think about is what always happens in the groups is the conversation there's around your partner can't learn to trust you again, isn't going to learn to trust you again because you're perfect. They're going to learn to trust you again because of how, when you fall, how you stand up and what you've been learning from those experiences. That's where the trust will be rebuilt.
And what type of transparency is brought through that process.
Yeah.
Like, I remember times where you would tell me really hard, difficult, I would say even like felt ugly things. Yet there's this part of me that's like, this is so hard. And another part of me that's like, oh, but I'm getting truth and I can feel that. And that feels so good. So it was like part of me hated it and part of me loved it. But through that transparency, through the leaning into the hard, that's where we actually have the real healing happen.
Totally. I love that. So there's this quote out there. I don't know what book it's from. Feel free to put it out to the group if you can tell me where it's at. But the partner says, I'd rather be slapped with the truth than kissed with a lie.
Oh, that wasn't from a book. That
No?
was, no, somewhere in my healing, early in my healing, it was like a Chinese proverb. And I
Oh,
had seen it on social media and I loved it so much I printed it off.
okay. Well, there you go. Now we got the source. Some Chinese proverb. But anyway, that's the truth. It's what Alana said over and over again. I can take anything, but I just can't take the lies. So intimacy is what I'm going for. I can't have intimacy unless all of me is being seen. All of me.
Which goes back to that fear of the betrayer. If they really knew me or really saw me, they couldn't love me.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's where, for those who have betrayed, you have to be willing to risk that rejection.
Yeah.
There's so much connection and healing and a deeper, richer, better relationship on the other side of that fear. But you have to be willing to lean into that discomfort.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. Okay, so I've pretty much finished that topic there.
Can
So
I go back to something you said earlier?
yeah, real quick, if we're,
Yeah.
Vanessa, I don't know if we're getting it, but please seek for clarification on parts, especially when you're feeling triggered, because you're like, what are you talking about? Are you talking about the I am going to have relapses and slips? Like, are you talking about that that's what my partner is going to experience? So, Vanessa, are we getting anything pop up or is just more other stuff around this? Oh, you're on mute.
As you were saying that, I did notice one just came in.
Okay, we can hit Alana's, then come back to it, but please put it in. Please put it in, y'all, if you want clarification. Don't just sit through this.
At the very beginning, you said there's a belief system still in place. And then you had quickly moved on to something else. And I think that piece is so important that even when there's this coming forward and I'm trying to be transparent and I'm leaning into all of this, the rewiring of the brain is a process. I remember watching a YouTube video one time and there was these guys and they were on a stage. I was trying to think maybe it was a TED Talk, but I don't think it was. But anyway, they had a bicycle. And you know, when you're riding your bike and you want to turn to the right, you turn your wheel to the right and you go to the right. And when you turn your handlebars to the left, you go to the left. Well, they had like flipped the mechanism in it. So if you wanted to go to the right, you had to turn left. And if you wanted to go to the left, you had to turn right. And watching these adult men who had rode bikes their entire life try to ride the bike, they couldn't. They kept falling over and the bike kept falling over and they were laughing and making such a big joke about it. But they talked about how their brain was so hardwired to do things this one way. And so they kept working on it and trying to figure it out. And finally, like through all this struggle, they start getting it. And they start going, okay, I want to go right. So they turn left. And so they figure out how to ride this bike backwards. And then what was really interesting is then they gave him a normal bike and had him jump on the normal bike. And at first, they couldn't do it. But within seconds, they were back to riding the bike like nothing because those neural pathways in their brain were so strong from riding the bike the way they had already known that it was really easy for them to go back to the old way. And so, in this process of we're trying to rewire the brain, and for a lot of these individuals, it's been a lifetime of doing it this one way. It's been a lifetime of hiding, a lifetime of secrecy, a lifetime of self protecting. If we've had our neural pathways so strong for so long, when we're trying to learn how to do it right, it is common to have times that we get pulled into that old way of thinking. And that could mean a slip. It could mean a relapse. It could mean that I'm going back just to self-protective thinking. It could mean I'm going back and I'm being selfish. It could mean a whole lot of things that goes back to those neural pathways, which is why we have to understand, because a lot of people go, oh, see, I can't ride a bike this way because I went back to this. And so there's this process that has to be slowed down and that we have to understand that it's going to take a while, a long while to rewire the brain. And we don't actually get rid of these neural pathways. They stay there. But what happens is we build these other ones that get really strong here until these ones get stronger. And that becomes the default. But we're talking about something that happens over years. So there has to be both, hopefully for the person who's been betrayed and the betrayer, a realistic awareness of what a process this truly is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm seeing some really good stuff coming in the chat, but not the chat. I think there's some stuff coming in, right, Vanessa?
Yeah, so let me share these. So this first question is, and you were talking about this a little bit. So with that authenticity of the betrayer sharing any relapses or information that they need to share, how do you balance being authentic and being honest with the continual hurt when you're sharing that information with your partner that you are hurting?
Hmm.
What's
Okay,
the balance, or how do you help in that situation?
so are we taking that question as like, how do we share it with them? How do we share truth with them without hurting them too much?
Yeah, so let me read this part because it was said so wonderfully. Thank you for sharing this. I feel like my partner is so set on not lying, but it ends up hurting me over and over again.
Mm.
And then how do you deal with that as the person receiving that information when it's so hurtful?
Alana, do you mind going first? Or do you want
Yeah.
me to?
Yeah. Do you have something?
Yeah,
My mind's been a couple different directions, so I'll let you go first and then
I'm hoping I can answer it because I'm going to go a little bit different direction. Okay, so if you're the person who's the partner, the person's been betrayed, I want you to focus on this concept. We've had an explosion, we've had a D-Day, like our world changed because they've shared secrecy and hiding. Both people want to go, that was really painful. Let's not go back there. Okay. You haven't left. He's still there. He didn't change anything by just sharing with you what happened. Okay. So there's this, what Alana's talking about with the bike. What you're doing and what you're watching for is the pattern shift of how he shows up when he's not perfect. And a lot of times what we fear is that the moment they lie or they have a close call or whatever happens, that means they're all the way back in it, right? They're just back in it. They're back into the whole thing and they've just given up and all that stuff. And that's not true. That's not true. So much empathy for the partner right now because they have the front row seat to this experience, which is really the changing and the rewiring of the brain. So if you have a partner, and this might be triggering too, if your person that betrayed you shows up and just goes, I'm good now. Like I saw an angel and now I don't even think about any of that stuff anymore. That in theory is super problematic. Where there can be more hope is the journey along the way where they're open and then they share with you what they're learning and how they're growing from that. And what's so scary is that can sound like a pass. So I want to go back to my addict brain, the part of me and the acting out behaviors is for the person that's been betrayed the other person, they don't view this as cool. Now I get a pass to not be perfect. Now I can go slip one time. It is so far from that mind because there's so much pain tied to it if they jump right into it and start to work on it. Alana, you want to clean any of that up or do you got any thoughts on that?
I'll let that sit, but I'll just say every time that your partner acts out, it hurts. And whether they are telling you about it or they don't tell you about it and you find out later, there's pain attached to that. And there's no avoiding that piece of it. That hurt is a natural consequence. And I say natural consequence, not as the like a good or bad. It's just the reality of what happens as there is this pain that comes with that acting out behavior. And sometimes I'll see the person who is acting out, like tell the other person in an attempt so they can feel better. I'm going to go dump it on you. And okay, now I feel better. And the partner walks away just in pain. If that's the process that's happening, they come, they dump it on you, they feel better, you feel worse. That in of itself is problematic. If they come and they tell you and they say, hey, I'm trying to be transparent, here you go, and you don't get any type of like understanding or hearing of them going, hey, this is what happened. This is what I'm trying to do to figure it out. Here's the tools I want to be using. Here's how I want to be moving forward. If you're not getting that extra piece, then we're missing a real piece of what it takes to move forward. Luke uses a term in his groups called the game tape. We got to look back at the game tape. And in essence, it's like in any type of sport, they're recording the event and then they'll go in the locker room or have a team meeting after and they're looking through the game tape to understand of like, where did we do good? Where did we get off? Where do we need to adjust? And by studying that game tape of what happened, we learn and then we go practice these new skills and then we move forward. And in the next game, we want to show up better and stronger. And if we're not taking this process of slowing down and doing the game tape, then that's a really missed opportunity because that's again like where the growth happens. And so for a partner, yes, that transparency is so good and helpful, but even more so is when we get that transparency and then the person who's hurt them is able to say, and here's what I've learned. Here's what I figured out with my sponsor. Here's what I figured out with my therapist or my coach. Here's what I'm going to be working on moving forward. That right there, that creates a ton of safety.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, that's different. That might be different for you, right? If your partner shows up and says, hey, let me tell you about something that I do not want to share with you. This is what I learned about it. This is what led up to it. This is what happened. And this is what I'm going to do going forward. I want to be clear. I want to share that with you. Okay,
Well,
I want to clean
can
one
I
thing.
say one more thing about partners though?
Yeah.
Partners also, like you have to decide for yourself what you can and want to hear. Like you are in charge of that. And so like if your cup gets too full and you're in a place of like, I really want this, but I can't hear it right now, or I can't hear anymore, like you have to be in charge of yourself and what you can or cannot handle or make space for. And that's okay. Wherever you are and whatever you need is okay too. Like that's my responsibility as a partner to be able to determine that and then voice that.
Yeah. Okay, one thing I want to make sure that stays clean is for the person that did the betraying that shows up and says, hey, let me share with something that's they're sharing something that they don't want to. It's going to cause that disruption. They can weaponize that, and that's really, really bad by saying something like, hey, this is going to be, I'm going to have slips, I'm going to have close calls. Like this is a part of the journey. If they take any information that they learn to make it lighter for themselves or put that pressure on you, that's weaponizing. Okay. That's weaponizing the information they have. So just you can watch for that and it says something. So my responsibility when I show up and say, hey, I've made a mistake or something came close, or hey, I told you a lie. I need to give you truth. There is just ownership of that. There's no shifting of that. There's no pushing it off.
Amy and I did an episode on our podcast, the Choose to Be podcast, on weaponizing recovery and how problematic that is and how that really you can't heal a relationship if there's weaponizing recovery in there. So I really appreciate you bringing that up.
Vanessa, what else is there?
Yeah, so this one I'm going to put into one question. So if you can clarify that relapses are part of the recovery process and maybe kind of add some clarity and clarification on why that is. And then if you accept that, are you providing an excuse for them to actually relapse?
Yeah, let's give a little definitions here because words matter. So the way that we teach it is we say, all right, there are a few different types of behavior. There is a close call, which is I've defined my acting out behavior. I came close to it, but I know the line and I didn't go past it. So the close call, I need to analyze that. I need to gain tape around that. I got to understand what
We
happened
still have to do our work around close calls.
around close calls. And then there's a slip, which is actually I go into my acting. I go into that behavior, that unwanted behavior. I'm there. That slip, what determines a slip is I'm immediately accountable with the timeline that I've set up for myself to share this with my accountability partner, sponsor, whatever that is, and my partner. Okay.
Side note,
Yeah.
we don't like the word slip because slip makes it feel it's a minimizing word, but that's the word that's kind of used across the field. So
Yeah. Because
it
you're
is.
saying it minimizes the impact. Is that what you're saying, Lana? Need a different word to not minimize the impact for sure. Then what we have, which is not a part of, well, then we have a relapse, which is just basically I'm going to stay in the behavior because I already did it, so I might as well do it again and again, and someday I might come out of it. So those first two can be a part of the learning experience, even though extremely, extremely painful, depending on what's done with it. Relapses are not. Relapses are not.
Relapse is part of the addiction and it's not part of recovery. Now you can still learn from your relapses, but recovery is facing it and learning from it.
Does that answer that one, Vanessa?
Thank you. And if it didn't, please feel free to add any amendments in the Q&A. Thank you for your questions. I did want to address some questions that were submitted. in our survey in the email when you registered. Thank you so much for doing that. This one is asking, what does individual work look like? And how do you know when to start couples work together?
So we technically break it up into almost three parts. Individuals is, that's the very first thing that you do I'll speak for the person that is betraying, understanding my own values, understanding my own self, understanding the tools that I need to not go back in the behavior and what caused the behavior. That's all individual work. Okay. And then what we go into, Alana, do you want to speak to the individuals for the trip before I go to the next part?
I would just say for the betrayed, it's really learning how to feel your feelings, how to have self-compassion, awareness, acceptance, listening to your body. And then if it's safe enough for relational work, then how to lean into the relationship, how to work through the trust. There's just a lot of emotional components to it.
And somewhere along the journey, what there is there's what we call early couples work, which is the person betraying still has they're really coming back into that space with their spouse and wanting to be able to have empathy at a greater level or allow for some relational healing, but it's not couples like, hey, you need to work on your stuff and share it with me, and I'm going to work on my stuff and share it with you, work on the relationship. It's still a lot of the individual work, but because there is a relationship that still exists, there's guidance there. And that's like the second part. And then you move into couples, which is what we were referring to earlier. The question is when. That's really, really hard to answer. So we'll give you some typical milestones or some typical markers along the road. Is that early couples can happen when he has the knowledge of understanding empathy and he can grasp the concepts, but is having a difficult time having that in the relationship. So he has a professional step in to be in that dynamic with the two of them and create some guidance and some
Can I
tools there. Yeah.
can I clean that one up a little bit?
Yeah, that'd be great, Alana.
Okay.
This is not the first time this has happened, by the way.
Well, no, it's just okay. As a betrayed partner, the level my brain wants empathy is not something that usually you can access. Empathy, to truly have empathy, is one of the later things that comes in the healing work. Like you can have cognitive empathy, but for like that real attunement, and that's what I wanted, was that real attunement. And so if I waited for empathy, if I waited for my partner to feel like you had some sense of empathy, then I probably would have waited way too long. And so that early couples work really is teaching the baby steps of empathy. And that early couples work is teaching of how the person who has hurt their partner can sit in their pain and sit with them in their pain without retreating and without running. And I really, the longer I've done this, the more I believe that doing this early couples recovery work, when there's not emotional abuse or physical abuse happening, we have to get rid of that element because there has to be enough safety to be able to do some early couples recovery work. But that early couples recovery work gives us these bridges that keep us together so we don't get on these islands and we go further and further and further away. Because what I've seen happen is, and I had a client tell me that her husband was doing this recently, that he's like, well, I got to work on my own work. So in essence, he was kind of turning his back towards her. And it was like, yeah, you're in pain and you have stuff going on, but I got to do my own work right now. And how damaging that is to the relationship, because now not only have we had this betrayal, but now we have this active current abandonment that's happening. And so you have each of these people doing their individual work, and we're finding these ways to have these bridges and understanding, because a lot of times these couples, you're still living together. You're still talking every day. You're still talking about the betrayal. So to have a third party who's trained in the early couples recovery, who can help do some of those bridges, then with time, as that individual work really gets solidified, then you can move into the deeper couples work. But if we wait for the empathy, you could wait for years, and by then we could be so far apart.
Dude, I thank you for cleaning that up.
Okay, so excuse me. So this question goes back to what we were talking about with sharing information. So this is a follow-up. They share info that hurts, and then they say something along the lines of, this is just part of me that I don't want to fight, or it is human nature to be attracted to attractive people, or I can't control my thoughts. Is that a red flag, or is that just a hard truth to their reality?
It's a
Mm,
hard truth to where they are at.
mm, mm.
And there were times in the journey, I remember Luke would say something, and I would have this serious, oh shit moment in my brain of like, oh my gosh, that's where he's at. And I want to pretend that's not where he's at. I want to ignore where he's at. I want to fight it. I want to control it. I want to convince him and talk him out of it. But that's not my job. That's his work he needs to do with his therapist to figure that out. What that is for me as a betrayed partner is information on where he is at. And Luke, I would love to hear the other side of it on that one. Your
Yeah,
thoughts.
I'm just a lot of empathy for the partner right there, that they're so much vested in this, so much just hoping and wanting their partner to show up, and this partner goes to a place of, it's just me. I mean, you just gotta live with it. And that's heavy. Um, and I hear, actually, I don't know if I hear this. There's a possibility of this. It was like, I don't know how to do this. So I'm curious what kind of work they're doing on their own, if this is where they're at. Excuse me, I'm kind of curious about what if they're just doing on this on their own, if they're involving professionals. So, you know, I know Alana in her part of her journey, her boundaries had to be, hey, I'm sorry, not sorry. Why did I use that word? Hey, I can't be in a relationship with somebody that's acting outside the values unless they're working with somebody in this. And it was a really healthy boundary.
I have an example for this. Back when we were in couples work, hold on, my cell phone somehow has the audio. Like, so I glanced over and everything I'm saying, my cell phone's like trying to type it out for me in a text to my mother of all people. Anyway, I had to stop that. So early in our journey, uh, where Luke's acted outside of our relationship with other people, we were in a couple session and he was saying that he has to have lunch with females at work. And I was like, well, I'm not comfortable with that. And Luke's like, I don't see like what the problem is, because that's part of my job. Like if I'm going to do ride-alongs with people and we have lunch, that's just what the job is. And I remember in my brain like freaking out of like, are you kidding me? For everything that we've been through, like why would you open yourself up to that? And I remember the therapist working with him on that and trying to help him understand it, and he didn't quite get it. So then they went about it in a different way, the therapist. He still didn't get it. And I think it was a few sessions of kind of working through this, 3 sessions. Yeah, of working through this before it really was this like, oh, I actually can't do this for me. Like even like separate of my wife, I can't do this. I could never have shown him that or convinced him of that. I could talk myself blue, and trust me, I tried to get him to get it and understand. It was a professional that he didn't feel the shame with, and that who had skills and tools to be able to do that work with him to figure out like what he needed for his own personal boundaries.
Well, check this out, y'all. I actually agreed with Alana. Like, I'm like, yeah, I can't. I mean, I shouldn't, but I can't. Like, it's my job, right? I don't have another opportunity. I got to provide money, income for our family to survive. Like, this is a part of the job. And what the therapist did such an amazing job with is, I was a people pleaser. It was absolutely a possibility for me to not do that, but I didn't want to make people unhappy. What was interesting is I was okay with making my wife unhappy, just not other people. So it was opening my eyes to some other stuff. Okay, so we're running out of time. Vanessa, do we got anything else?
Yeah, and I can actually put these, I'm going to try to put these together because we had a great question in the survey come through just before the meeting started. And as well as in the Q&A. So the question is, will these, and for lack of a better word right now, are slips and close calls going to continually happen? Is it just something that we need to accept? And then the question that we had in the survey is, and this is from the other side, from somebody who betrayed their partner, is how do you know, what does recovery look like? What are the milestones to show that they're truly in recovery?
Yeah. Okay, so this the answer is the same thing that affects the brain. I don't want to do this will always be the same, which is I'm scared to be seen. Right? I'm scared to be seen. I'm afraid that so bad. But what's going to happen is the behavior is going to look different over a period of time. The trajectory is going to improve, but there will always be a place of I don't want to be seen. If I shared this with you, this is this is gonna be hard. It's just going to be less intense around the behavior. So I'm not saying that to necessarily try to tell you like, okay, that means it'll just always improve and somehow you'll meet a magical land of perfection. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying is you can expect an intensity of the behavior if there's a continuous sharing of truth, you will see that getting better, but it will be like this, right? So, and it just depends on the person. It depends on what's going on. It's just how quick will I be willing to look at it. Okay, Alana had to scoot, y'all. I'm gonna still stay here while we answer any last questions that we have. Vanessa, that second one was what are the milestones?
Yes. What are the milestones to know that you're in recovery and to show your spouse that you are working recovery?
Yeah, I would just say that the milestones are my ability to be able to share my reel. Um, and that's what I look for. And that's going to be, um, okay. When I start off this journey, I'm into deep denial, deep denial. I can't even see reality. So as I come out of it, I'm able to see things at a different level, which means I share other parts of me that I couldn't share before and I couldn't see. So the concept the same as I continue to share things that I can't see before. It just looks more intense in the beginning. I feel like I just repeated myself. I'm hoping that's helpful for you. And as far as roadmaps go and milestones, as milestones or markers, please check out the Road to Recovery map that Alana created, because that one is really useful to see where you're at and what type of improvements have been made. And again, a lot of times what feels like it's getting worse actually shows marked improvements.
Thank you, Luke. And we'll include that in the email that we send out the next day. We'll include this. So if you want to go back and watch it again, we'll also include some of the resources and different things that we mentioned, as well as the events and courses we have coming up. So thank you, Luke. I know that wasn't a quick question to answer at the end, but come every month, we continue to do this conversation and things that we didn't hit on the last one. I know that you and Alana like to go back and really focus on those. So if your question didn't get answered, if you want any clarity, reach out to us. We want to help. Luke, what would you say if somebody is just needing to know, where do you start if they're just starting out on this?
Yeah, please don't try to figure out what you need to do. Just please take a consult with a professional. It doesn't need to be me. It doesn't need to choose. Just somebody take a consult and just start to explore what the possibilities are.
Yeah, and I did include in the chat, if you do want to talk to one of us, you can sign up to do just a brief 15-minute consult. We can answer your questions and help put you in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you, Vanessa. Catch you all later. Have a good night.